Make sure not that the government pays, not that we as taxpayers pay, but the large polluters pay. And so what happens?
But does that not ultimately trickle down?
No, because what the big companies are producing, by and large, are not products that we are consuming. There's some element of that, but by and large, a steel company, how much steel are you using these days, Todd?
Common Sense Loonie, that's my tune, bringing truth to the red and white moon.
Personally, I am a man.
How much steel are you using these days, Todd?
Oh my, that clip has not aged well. Welcome all, we're here with another Common Sense Loonie, and we're breaking down Carney's plan to save the Canadian steel industry. If you like our videos, hit the like and subscribe. We're still young with lots of improvements to go, but we're trying. Let's get into it. So today we're covering Carney's steel industry plan, but there's more. We've got a trans person from America, illegal in Canada, trying to get asylum because America is too dangerous for them. We've also got a strange story about a hijacked plane in British Columbia with a few twists. And we've got what seems to be the final chapter in the saga of the golfer beatdown. Let's get started with Carney and steel. With US President Donald Trump imposing 50% tariffs on Canadian steel in June, the industry's future is shaky. Carney held a press conference in Hamilton on July 16, announcing plans to curb cheap foreign steel imports and invest $1 billion to protect Canada's steel sector. But many are worried. Carney's past remarks and his failure to secure a US trade deal raise doubts about whether these measures will be enough. Let's dive into what this means for Canada's steel future. CBC predictably cheered Prime Minister Mark Carney's announcement in Hamilton, claiming Canadians were impressed by his $1 billion plan. But let's be real, we're never impressed with CBC's take. Instead, we'll turn to Scott Hurst at CTV for his perspective on Carney's strategy. Sure, CTV has its biases, but it's not as blatant as CBC.
Good afternoon. What more did we hear from the Prime Minister?
Renee, good afternoon. Really an important announcement coming out of Hamilton, which we all know is known as Steel Town. It really is the beating heart of the Canadian steel industry. And a lot of these are measures that those in the steel industry had been hoping for to protect the steel industry right now amid the ongoing trade war with the United States and ultimately make it more competitive in the future and make it more of a priority when it comes to Canadian steel for Canadian projects. So here are some of the things specifically that Mark Carney announced today in Hamilton. By restricting and reducing foreign steel imports entering the Canadian market, setting quotas on the amount of foreign steel making it into our market. And Prime Minister Mark Carney, as you mentioned, saying steel originating in China will be subjected to higher tariffs to try and prevent steel dumping amid the ongoing global trade war, particularly as Canada tries to negotiate a trade deal with the United States. And Mark Carney went on to make announcements about protecting steel workers right now as the industry is facing 50% tariffs that have been imposed by the Trump administration.
Okay, so Carney's plan to slap 25 to 50% tariffs on Chinese steel sounds good on paper, but frankly, it's too simplistic. China has a long history of dodging tariffs through transshipment. What the heck is transshipment, you say? Is that even a word? Well, yes it is, and the Chinese are particularly good at it. Transshipment means rerouting goods through other countries to hide their origin. For example, Chinese steel has been shipped to Mexico, relabeled as Mexican, and then sent to the US to exploit tariff-free trade under the USMCA. Canada's at risk of the same trick. China could funnel steel through Mexico to bypass our tariffs. So, to make this plan work, Canada needs to get tough. They need to adopt strict melted and poured rules like in the US to ensure steel is genuinely from the claim country. And Canada needs to ramp up customs enforcement with better tracking of steel origins. Canada's customs are already facing struggles. We're going to need to upgrade big time. Lastly, Canada needs to work with allies like the US to close loopholes in trade agreements like the USMCA. Trump's not wrong to want to renegotiate that deal. There's a lot of mess in it, especially since Mexico's already a known transshipment hub. Without these steps, Carney's tariff plan is just a feel-good policy that China will easily sidestep.
And Carney also talked about prioritizing the use of Canadian steel to help build big infrastructure projects in this country and changing federal government procurement process to encourage the use of Canadian steel. And so right now the industry is under significant threat. Steel, aluminum, and also recently the U.S. president has gone after copper, but particularly when we talk about steel, it is under significant threat, facing that 50% tariff from the Trump administration. And those in the steel industry say these tariffs have been crippling. It's resulted in job losses and really been a detriment to the industry as a whole, which is incredibly important to the Canadian economy, as so much steel, particularly right now, is dependent on the U.S. market. So basically, the bottom line from the Prime Minister today is, firstly, to protect the Canadian economy, the Canadian steel industry from foreign markets, and also make the Canadian steel industry more competitive in the future, but also right now, as this ongoing trade war continues and negotiations continue with the United States, there are measures to protect the industry and protect the steel workers.
Okay, let's look at this. What are these big infrastructure projects Carney keeps hyping? He talks about nation-building plans to make Canada an energy superpower, mentioning pipelines, ports, railways, and housing. But details? Well, any concrete details are thin. He's floated ideas like new oil pipeline to the BC coast, a carbon capture project with Pathways Alliance, and a high-speed rail from Windsor to Quebec. Yet there's no final list, no clear timeline, just vague promises of fast-tracking approvals within 2 years. That's not a plan, it's a wish list. BC Premier David Eby's opposition to pipelines driven by environmental and spill concerns could create friction. The $16.5 billion carbon capture project lacks secure funding, faces unproven technology doubts, and is criticized as greenwashing. The high-speed rail, potentially costing $20 to $50 billion, struggles with high costs, uncertain ridership, and coordination issues between Ontario and Quebec. Plus, there's all that environmental and Indigenous opposition across all projects. And there's one other part of Carney's plan that sounds really shaky. He announced that $70 million will fund employment insurance and retraining for up to 10,000 steelworkers. But wait, here's the thing. That's only $7,000 for each steelworker. How long do you think that money's going to last, especially with all the bureaucracy in our government? That's not enough for long-term retraining or to create new jobs if the industry keeps shrinking. The plan has its merits, but there's a lot that really needs to be considered. Here's 3 things that I believe need to be done to protect our steel industry. First, have tougher rules on all cheap steel. Don't just target China. Carney should track where all imported steel comes from and slap tariffs or penalties on any country dumping cheap steel here. He could work with the US and Mexico to make sure no one's sneaking steel through the back door, like rerouting Chinese steel through other countries. Second, joint ventures with foreign steel companies. Canada isn't currently forming partnerships with steel producers in high-demand markets like India or Japan. Joint ventures would allow Canada to share technology, reduce production costs, and gain direct access to local markets, bypassing some competitive barriers. For example, partnering with Japan's Nippon Steel could open doors to Asia's shipbuilding sector. Third, global marketing campaign for Canadian steel. Canada hasn't invested in a strong international branding effort to promote its steel quality and reliability. A targeted campaign could highlight Canada's stable steel supply and high standards, appealing to industries like construction in the Middle East or manufacturing in South Korea, where trust in suppliers is key. Mark Carney's plan to help Canada's steel industry sounds good, but it seems like it needs more work to really make sense. I'm not sure if Carney, who's mostly worked as a banker, has the know-how to pull this off, since it's a massive, tricky job. I voted Conservative, but no matter who's in charge, I just want Canada to do well. I'm not hoping for anyone to fail, because if they fail, we all fail. I just want a solid plan that works for our steel industry and keeps our country strong. What do you think? Do you think Poilievre would have pulled off better results? Do you think the steel industry in Canada will survive from this? Do you think Carney can pull this off? Comment below. Our next story comes to us from the Toronto Sun through the Associated Press. Here's the story. The headline is, Non-binary persons' U.S. deportation pause due to risks faced by LGBTQ plus people. Ottawa. A non-binary American is being allowed to temporarily stay in Canada after deportation proceedings were paused by a judge who said an immigration officer did not consider the potential dangers facing LGBTQ plus people in the U.S. Angel Jenkel was scheduled for removal on July 3rd, but received a stay of removal on July 2nd until a judicial review of the decision can be completed. Jenkel came to Canada in August 2022 to visit the man who is now their fiancé. Jenkel said that for the first 2 months his health was fine, but eventually his epilepsy brought on pretty bad seizures. Canadian visitor visas expire after 6 months. and a visitor who stays longer can be deported. Facing removal, Jenkel applied to have a pre-removal risk assessment heard by an immigration officer. During these hearings, applicants need to demonstrate that there is a risk of real harm if they are removed from Canada. Jenkel was self-represented at the hearing. They said the officer decided they did not bring forward enough evidence that their removal to the U.S. would result in irreparable harm. Okay, so here's my take on this. First, the claim that the U.S. is a danger zone for LGBTQ plus folks is pure fiction. Both Canada and the U.S. have debates over school curriculums. They have debates over gender-affirming care for kids. They have debates for pride flags on government buildings. Big deal. These are policy arguments, not persecution. And President Trump's stance on recognizing only two genders? It's a federal memo, not a guillotine for anybody's identity. Millions of LGBTQ plus people thrive in the U.S. without facing systemic harm. Painting America as a war zone for this community is laughable and smells like an excuse to dodge the real issue here. So what is the real issue? Jenkel came to Canada in 2022 on a 6-month visitor visa. They overstayed it illegally to care for their fiancé with epilepsy. I get the human side of wanting to help. But immigration laws aren't suggestions. You can apply to extend a visa or find legal ways to stay. Jenkel didn't bother. Now they're claiming irreparable harm to avoid going home, and Canada's stuck with a judicial review. Who's paying for this legal circus? You, me, and every Canadian taxpayer. Every court session, every lawyer's fee, it's public money down the drain for what looks like someone playing the system. And speaking of shaky narratives, let's look at who's really facing intimidation. On April 25th, 2025 in Ottawa, a group led by Chris Elston, you might know him as Billboard Chris, protested against gender ideology in schools near Broadview Avenue. Parents and locals calmly raised concerns about curriculums pushing gender identity on kids. Sounds reasonable, right? But they were swarmed by counter-protesters, including Community Solidarity Ottawa and trans activists, some reportedly tied to Antifa.
To be totally honest with you, I mean, I don't know about you, but they kind of swarmed us with flags. I couldn't really see what was going on. I probably got pushed a couple times. So if you're looking for like, hey, what happened? Genuinely, I don't really know, because I'll tell you what we were trying to do, but they had flags and they surrounded all of us. Instead of like having us go out and exit, it was, no, stay here, we're gonna circle you. And then there was just chaos that all erupted around. So for me personally, I was just trying to make sure the camera guy was good and I guess trying to find an out. The response to that was violence and screaming, and I don't know what happened with those people that got arrested.
So I actually went and asked the police if it was okay if we went over just in a neutral filmmaking kind of capacity to ask some questions and see why they're all here today. And they gave us permission. We went over there and then exactly that. We just went around the back. I was looking for the type of person who was maybe looked approachable, and to be honest, not one of them did. And then all of a sudden we were just swarmed by rainbow flags and people wearing masks. No, we didn't say a word. We didn't get
not the chance to do it.
No chance to talk to them whatsoever.
I might have said hi to somebody.
Yeah.
So what do you think about the behavior of the other side so far?
Oh, well, I think that was absolutely appalling. I've been at many of these protests, and there's always the chanting, and there's always the wild accusations that we're fascists and transphobes and all the rest, which is absurd. But I've never seen that sort of instant violent reaction. That was completely appalling.
Masked counter-protesters shouting, swarming, and intimidating peaceful protesters and journalists. Ottawa police even arrested 2 people for the chaos. If anything, it's the folks questioning gender ideology, those saying, maybe there are only 2 genders. They're the ones who look like they're in danger, not the trans community. This doesn't scream oppressed minority to me. It screams aggressive activism drowning out dissent. Here's the undeniable truth. The law applies to everyone. I don't care if you're gay, trans, non-binary, a space alien. You don't get to break immigration rules because of your identity. That's not discrimination. It's fairness. Jenkel's case feels like a stunt to avoid deportation by waving the identity flag, while taxpayers foot the bill for the drama. If you overstay a visa, own it. If you think Trump's America is a death trap, maybe it's time for a reality check. Canada's immigration system is already strained, and it shouldn't be a playground for exaggerated claims, and taxpayers should not be stuck with the tab. Let's enforce laws equally, stop pretending the U.S. is a boogeyman, and focus on fairness for everyone. Anything less is just nonsense. What do you think? Comment below. Okay, we're going to CTV News for this one. Maybe you've heard about it. A man hijacked a small Cessna plane from Vancouver Island and flew it to Vancouver Airport. It flew above the airport until it eventually landed and the man was arrested.
39-year-old Shahir Kasim. He's been charged with 1 count of hijacking and as well terrorism offenses. We know that we're going to show you now a Facebook shot. A man under his name, Sharim Kasim. It indicates that he is a former commercial pilot for Katie Air, that he was a climate author and studied at UVic. Now, this incident at YVR is serious and it is getting international attention. Surrounded by Mounties, guns drawn, a man is taken into custody. He doesn't appear to resist. Less than an hour earlier, at 12:56 Tuesday, the Cessna he was flying is spotted on radar. Airport sources tell CTV News the suspect had hired a private flight with a pilot from the Victoria Flying Club. Just before takeoff, the suspect produced a knife, and somehow the pilot escaped. Around 13:10, air traffic controllers in Vancouver knew things weren't right.
Yeah, there's a little Cessna orbiting the airport, trying to stop everyone from going flying for some reason.
Sources tell CTV News the suspect told the tower it was his plan to shut down airspace for 5 hours to protest global warming. He was sticking to a script, repeating it over and over.
So Vancouver's first line of duty is to protect any other aircraft coming into the field, which they did. They diverted 9 flights as far away as Calgary and Seattle.
I'm just going to let you know that so that you can continue looking out the window. It's a 172, and just in case anything starts heading towards you, you have the ability to move at your discretion.
13:15, seeing the aircraft flying up and down, operations now grounded, all non-essential employees were evacuated from the airport tower.
Quite clearly from YVR, you could see a small aircraft circling in the airspace.
And CTV News has learned at 13:30, U.S. fighters F-15 Eagle jets were scrambled, and Canada's CF-18s were preparing for takeoff.
Vancouver is a major international airport, and so nobody knew whether the person had nefarious intent and intended to hurt themselves or to crash into somewhere on the Vancouver airport. So quite concerning.
But just before 2, at 13:45, the suspect brought the plane down safely and was taken into custody.
So here's what we know so far. The suspected hijacker was Shahir Kasim, a former pilot and climate activist. He hijacked the plane by knife point, and the pilot managed to escape unharmed. Now, the day before on Facebook, under a profile of the same name, Kasim posted the following: "I am a messenger of Allah. I am the Messiah sent to save humanity from climate change and usher in an era of world peace. The Arctic sea ice is going to disappear within 2 years. When that happens, huge amounts of methane are going to erupt from the Arctic Ocean, triggering abrupt runaway global warming, turning Earth into Venus." As we covered in the EV mandate episode, we've heard a lot of statements like this. You might want to go back and check out that one. But here's the thing, I've got questions. How on earth did he manage to get a knife onto a plane? I mean, even small planes have security, no? What was his plan? Some have speculated that he just wanted to delay flights in Vancouver and prevent takeoffs. What can be done to prevent things like this in the future? I mean, if there are any players out there with really bad intentions, they just got a free lesson into how to hijack a small plane. Crazy. What's your take? Comment below. Okay, let's finish this on a lighter topic. We all remember this from our last video, right?
I got it all on record. Hey, you wanna go, guys? Leave him alone. Hey, leave him alone, man. I wouldn't keep going back, you moron. Hey, bang! Come on, man. Bang! No, I'm not trying to get in there. Like, just like. Enough! Are you still cheering on you? Enough! Get out! Hey! Enough!
Yes, that's right, at Alberta Springs Golf Resort. Former NHL enforcer Nick Tarnasky turned a slow play spat into a pound-plunging spectacle when an overly tipsy Trevor Ogilvie, fueled by 36 holes and liquid courage, charged at Tarnasky, yelling, "Let's go!" The hockey vet tossed him into the pond like a human golf ball. Undeterred, Trevor scrambled back, only to eat a flurry of punches as Tarnasky hollered, "Bang, bang, bang," like a WWE announcer. The soggy scuffle ended with Ogilvie's pride more bruised than his face. First, some golfers decided to mark the location with an RIP flag made out of a golf scorecard. I love the effing cry about it written underneath in the bang, bang, bang. And a day or two after the incident, Ogilvy posted an apology online.
It's around the goal. I got it on.
Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I ended up in this situation.
Yep, that's me, guys. The guy that got dropped like a bucket of balls in a pond. Not my finest moment, I know. Looks real bad. Played 36 holes of golf. We drank way too much, and my mouth ran faster than my brain. All jokes aside, guys, I'd like to apologize to all the folks on the course, anyone caught up in it, and anyone who had to deal with me that day. I lost my cool, and I've learned from it. Just one of those days where you should have kept the cart on the path, you know. Stay hydrated, keep your stick on the ice, maybe stick to 18.
Well, I guess it happens to the best of us. Maybe not so severely, but whatever. And Tarnasky has addressed the incident on a podcast.
Yeah, so we started on the back. We teed off on 10. I watched him tee off, and I mean, I didn't know really what situation he was in, but I mean, you know, you hit a tee shot 10, 12 yards. You kind of give it, you know, take a mulligan, rip another one, and I didn't even pay attention. Then by the time I teed off, played hole 10, the marshal comes back and he said, hey, you know, those guys I'm trying to kick them off, but, you know, they're trying to fight me. And I'm like, all right, don't worry about it. You know, they're having fun. If I end up catching up to them, I'll just say, hey, guys, like, let's, you know, have your fun. Let's stay respectful to the staff and, you know, the other golfers. Like, no big deal. You guys are having yourself a time. Okay, so catch up to them. By the time these guys take 45 more minutes to tee off on 15, and so now we've jammed up at 15 tee box. I'm behind my buddy. He's kind of, you know, he's a little tentative because these guys are clearly, I mean, bath salts or meth or I don't know what was going on there. So I said, hey, you know, I'll go talk to him. And so I rolled up and I just said, hey, guys, that we got to get moving. And that instantly set him off. And he's doing the fist clenching and the pump in his arms. And I said, you know, like that's where the altercation starts. That's on the video. Obviously, everybody's seen what then happens. And from then on, it was just basically what you see is exactly what happened.
Was it you who yelled out, I'm going to throw you in the pond? So was it you who gave him the warning or was it your buddy?
Yeah, like I was trying to be like, you know, let's make it fun. Like, I'm not going to threaten you, but like, hey, if I hear I'm going to get thrown in the pond by this fucking mutant, maybe I'm going to chill out. Maybe, you know, and I thought, you know, that might be kind of a good, fun way to be like, hey, you guys are in the wrong. Let's speed things up.
The one thing that I think surprised everybody was, did you give sound effects to your punches when you played?
I don't know. I was just trying to have fun with it. Like, I don't know. It's like, man, why I'm fighting in a golf course against a guy that like I don't even know what's going on here. I just thought, oh, fuck, this might be a blast. Fuck, have some fun with it. Like, whatever. And
did he put his tail between his legs and take off?
They finally did. So they take off. We go play hole 15. We're halfway through hole 16 and I see the cops parked at the green walking over. So I pick up, I headed over and they said kind of like, you know, were you guys the group that got thrown in the lake? And I'm like, no, officer, like, I'm not going to try to like hide from you. Like, I threw the guy in the lake. He was threatening people, trying to fight anybody he could. I tried to, you know, diffuse the situation the best that I can without hurting someone, ripped him in the lake. And he said, oh, you know what? Like, I don't know what more you could have done.
I guess all is well that ends well, or maybe there'll be a sequel. That's it for today's Common Sense Loonie. Please like and subscribe. My goal is to get, well, anyone to subscribe. But whatever, I'm just trying to get the hang of making regular videos and putting out my take on what's going on in Canada. This is Rex signing off. Stay strong, stay skeptical, and of course, stay loony.
I'm here to cut through the haze, no disguise. Gonna open your eyes to politicians' lies. Canada's great, but led by wackos, it's true. Time for no nonsense, me and you. I'm the Common Sense Loonie, hear my call. Ditch bingo night games, we'll fix it all. Common Sense Loonie, that's my tune. Bringing truth to the red and white moon.
Personally, I am a man.